Welcome, it's the RC Renegade here. Today I am telling a story about the time I crashed and hit a parking curb. It tore up the front of the car and it makes for a pretty good story. Before I begin, shout out to the Martins and the Martin boys. Every time I see them, they're always asking me if I've crashed my RC cars. The short answer is not at the moment, but I'm sure I will soon. But in the meantime, here's the story of when I did crash my RC car. It was a bright and sunny day last year, and I was out in one of the parking lots just driving my RC car, my Arrma Typhon TLR. And I was driving at about 75 to 100% throttle, so I was going pretty fast, and there was just one moment where I lost concentration. It takes a lot of concentration and focus to drive these RC cars, and for just a moment I lost my concentration and I hit a parking block. The car went from full speed to zero in a fraction of a second, and what I saw wasn't too good. One of the tires was like cockeyed and sticking up at an awkward angle. Here's a picture of what I saw. After seeing the damages that you guys just saw, I knew I couldn't drive my car anymore that day, so I took it home to assess the damages. Here is what I found. As you saw earlier, the damage to the car looked pretty severe. First, I found that this bolt that goes through the upper shock assembly was sheared off. It was sheared off, it was destroyed. Second, the lower A-arm underneath here was sheared in half. It broke in half, it was destroyed. And third, there was a pin that runs underneath the car that holds the A-arm in, and that was completely bent. I did not discover that until later, but that was one of the damages. Let me remove the tire so you can get a better view of what is going on. I took the nut off previously so that it would be easy to film this. Normally these tires aren't that easy to remove. So here is the shock assembly and the A-arm assembly on this car. You can see underneath that the A-arm is attached and it sits right in there. This piece was sheared off. This was sheared off. And as I mentioned, the pin under there was damaged. Let me give you a close-up of the actual parts removed from the car and show you why, in fact, this accident could have been much worse. When I got home, I removed the shell of the car because I really wasn't sure what I would find. When I removed the shell of the car, I found that all of the electronics were A-OK. I was most concerned about the servo. The servo is what controls steering on the RC car. Fortunately, these cars run what is called a servo saver. A servo saver is located right here, and it is a spring-loaded mechanism that acts as a shock absorber to the servo in the event of an accident. In the event of an accident, these wheels can get jarred. If this wheel hits a pole and it gets jarred, it'll force back, and the force is sent through the steering mechanism to the servo. And if this servo is jarred, that could damage it or it could ruin it. A servo saver, which as I mentioned is located right here, a servo saver is a spring-loaded mechanism that acts as a shock absorber that absorbs the blow to the tires so it protects the servo in the event of an accident. In this accident, this servo was protected by the servo saver, so the servo saver indeed saved the servo. Now, I noticed when I looked at the damages to this car, that this whole assembly here was indeed damaged. However, all the electronics were good. So that's important. The frame itself was not damaged. So this frame here was not warped. It was not damaged. Only this front part here and this A-arm was sheared off. The reason that is so important is because the energy was absorbed here, and it was the brunt of the force was taken right here, and it was not transferred to the rest of the car. So that is a good, that's a big deal. That's good that it was conserved to that area of the car. Here I have the 3 parts that I actually had to replace in this accident. As you can see, it could have been a lot worse, so I was thankful that I only had to replace these 3 parts. Here is a lower A-arm right here. This has a right and a left side, so it's important to make sure that you get the right side installed correctly when you are installing these. And then this is the pin. This is the pin that rides underneath the car, right underneath here in the front, and it holds the A-arm in place. So you can see there's a hole right here in this A-arm, and the pin just inserts right here into the A-arm, and it rides underneath the car. This is a brand new pin, but in the event of the accident, the pin got jammed. When the pin got jammed, it forced this pin, and it bent the old pin way out of position. So it was completely damaged. I wanted the car to drive straight and be aligned, so I just replaced the pin and the A-arm to recover from this accident. Next, I have this bolt here. This bolt holds on the shock assembly. It just inserts like so, and there's another nut that goes on this end. And in the accident, this bolt was sheared off. So all I had to do was replace this assembly here, replace the A-arm, and replace this pin. So honestly, it wasn't that bad of a repair. It took some time to take everything apart and then put it back together. But as far as parts go, this accident wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been. It's important to note that this shock assembly here was okay, because these shocks are not cheap. So that is just a story of when I crashed and tore up my RC car, and I have learned from this and moved on, and hopefully you learned something about putting these cars together and how they work. As always, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and be on the lookout for more videos.